Hello, my name is John Liu. I'm an Office and Power Platform MVP. Welcome to my session. Hope you've had a great M365 May event so far and have enjoyed lots of sessions. My session for the next 45 minutes is why and how to implement governance of the Power Platform. And there is a bit of a why and the benefits of why having a proper governance will help. But there is also a bit of how to, some tips and tricks. How do you get started? If you have already got started, where you could look to next. But this is quite a broad topic, so I'm very keen to hear your feedback. There is another session on Power Platform governance by that was a few days ago. So I've reviewed that, so I try to not cover, I try to not have overlap between the two sessions about how we cover this topic. Okay, and before I go, so start from current slide. So we welcome our speakers and participants from around the world, and we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this online conference is hosted, and the traditional custodians of the land where Australian-based speakers meet and participants are hosted. We also like to pay respects to elders past, present, and future. On behalf of M365, we also welcome and acknowledge all our speakers and participants from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you for supporting this hui. And this conference, M365 May, has a code of conduct. Basically, be constructive, be respectful, be helpful, and be kind. And this is a harassment-free conference for everyone, regarding of your gender, identity, age expression, disability, body size, race, ethnicity, religion, or technology choices. So do not tolerate harassment of any form. And let us know if there is any kind of something that upsets you or distracts you. Now, very quick, a little bit about me. My name is John Liu. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I'm almost certain this is cropped off. I'm MVP in SharePoint, being an MVP for 7 years, and also in Microsoft Flow and the Power Platform. I help run the Sydney SharePoint user group and also the Power Apps and Flow user group. You'll find me mostly on Twitter these days. That seems to be where I could engage with a lot of people. But I do still blog on johnliu.net. Usually it's a technical blog. And in the last 2 years, I've started building 2 products that help with the Power Platform. Power Studio is a power user and admin tool that you can use to get deeper insight. It's like a tool build. Power Clarity is actually a turnkey governance tool. But this talk is not so much about Power Clarity. This talk is about governance of the Power Platform in general. I go by the Twitter handle Flow Ninja. At the early days of Flow, Microsoft Flow, which is now called Power Automate. We all pick little nicknames for ourselves. So this is how I see myself. I throw Flow as answers to people's questions. It's like people ask me, John, can you do this in Office 365? I'm like, use more Flow. Throw more flows at you. Throw more Flow. Okay, the Power Platform, and this is traditionally this is a talk I gave to people in person, so I could see your faces. But generally, when it comes to governance, and this actually, if you think about governance as a problem in general, this extends outside of just Power Platform. This covers Office 365 as well. But there are different concerns, and that really based on who you are. You may be a business user, business analyst, or a Power user. Maybe if you're that, just type something into the chat, then we can tally it up. You may be someone from IT with IT admin kind of point of view, and you have a particular view of how governance need to be or what you should be looking at. Additionally, there is large organizations, but sometimes this is a function of IT. You need to be concerned with security. What is the data leak? Do you have any data leak? What about your privacy between your applications, right? So there are things that perhaps a power user that's came from the business side, but without a strong IT discipline has not thought about some of these things. So there are concerns as you like, if private or highly confidential data from the company were to leak out, then this is a major concern for you and by extension your department and your company. And ultimately, there are also a fourth category, which are the leaders. Like you may be a manager in both either the business side or in the IT side, or maybe you come from a CTO angle, or maybe you report to a CTO. But as leaders, what you're concerned with is, well, should we build more on the Power Platform? How do we see our return on investment? How do we see how much licensing should we be spending, and are we getting that benefit? Our users, and in a sense, you want the overall harmony of all these three groups. And then as the number of apps and flows are built out using the Power Platform, then the return on investment is easy to calculate. So there's all these concerns that all come together in this one big pot that we call governance, or you can call it management or governance. Anyway, so this big pot. So if you're a power user, your angle might be, I just need help. I need help to learn and grow. I've discovered flow. I'm having trouble with it. Who can I ask? Can I ask IT? IT may not know how to help me, so I may have to look online. Is there a community within the company that I can have a chat with and just learn from each other? If there's a training event being offered within the company, is there a way for me to sign up? Or sometimes it's by the community, right? Like I help run App in a Day in Sydney with my YouTube partner, not YouTube, my user group partner in crime, Bruce. So sometimes we run App in a Day with Microsoft, and it will be an event that's booked out. So, if you knew such an event was happening, maybe you could reach out to your manager and say, hey, I need to take that day off. There is a whole day training that I can join. And then from the IT side, which is these next 2 points, IT generally, because the Power Platform at the standard level is bundled with M365, a lot of IT, you have two kinds. One kind is IT that have already started using it, and they're finding, good benefits of it. Particularly if you start from PowerShell and you want to just automate, there's a lot of benefit in using Flow. But also a lot of IT department discovers that, our power users have already started using it. They saw a YouTube video online, and then they started getting their hand, dirty. They had a Excel spreadsheet that they've now put a Power App over the top, and now they're sharing it with a dozen people in the department. So many IT is coming from the angle that, we don't know how to support this or who will support this. In fact, sometimes IT doesn't even know what these apps are. It's quite surprising. In the second category, a lot of times IT administrators have just, when they start to see, when they first review all the apps and flows that are running, generally they are surprised at how many there are. There are so many trial environments that will spin up. There's so many apps that are created. A lot of them are trial apps that people are testing. So you can kind of say, well, that's not super critical. But then you'll end up with a handful, a dozen of apps that are actually business critical. And suddenly IT is thinking, how do we support this? We don't know what our users are doing, so how can we support this? From the security side, risk of data leak, what about privacy? And then between IT does have control at the environment level to set up what we call Power Platform policies. And these are generally to do with what connectors are people allowed to do within certain environments. I do not believe I have a slide on environment, so I may quickly explain. In the Power Platform, all your Power Apps and flows are grouped into these containers called environments. Think of it as a bundle, a quota of storage and compute and database size, all bundled in a little thing. So we call these environments. And you can assign people, give people access to certain environments, and then within those environments you can set up rules and say, okay, the default environment we only allow M365. You're not allowed to connect to anything outside of Microsoft. But then in this more specialized production environment, we allow you to connect to some of the web services that you may have built or you need to talk to. Maybe in the marketing department, you want to connect out to some sort of marketing hub, maybe HubSpot or something. So you can create separate environments that have different rules regarding what connections can be done. So even with options like that, we're giving more options to IT to be. You can create quite a fine-grained environment for your users to safely work in. But generally, it's something that we need to build up. And then for the leaders, we don't know how much it will cost, and also how do we measure ROI. These actually fall in place after you sort the rest of it out. Now, the ROI obviously increases the more apps and flows that we build. But to get to that high ROI, which is where Microsoft will say we have all these crazy companies that are just building out thousands of apps, and you're thinking, what kind of IT can support 1,000 apps, right? That are being created per year. So there really needs to be a harmony of IT and the power users who are making apps, being nurtured to build proper and better quality apps that require less support. Like imagine your first apps, they're not super high quality, needs a bit of feedback. And also as the maker who is, building your first app, you kind of go, okay, well, I learned better patterns, so I'll go back and fix it up. So as makers get better at making apps, the apps are higher quality, or if it were to error, they knew how to fix it very quickly. So you may not need IT to get involved to help fix an app, but so there is that, all that. So this is the why. Now the how. To do governance, really, and if you think about it, this applies to M365 in general. First of all, you need a big list for everything that you have. That goes, even before we come to governance of the Power Platform. If you just consider SharePoint governance, what is that? That means you have to know where your site collections are and who your sites are, or who has permission to what site. Are these sites, so old that no one's actually in them anymore? And Teams governance, which is a big deal now. We saw it several years ago that Teams was gonna just scale out of control, and it is happening. Teams is wonderful, and it gave us many benefits. But there is the thought also, okay, we should have some idea of where all the teams are. Maybe all teams need to be archived. Maybe similar teams need to be merged together. So Teams governance. So the same thing for Power Platform. Power Apps, which are apps that we can build. We need to know where they are. And generally, they are not completely public, right? Like apps, generally, when you build one, it's just shared with you. And you may add a handful of people, so just share with them. So from the IT side, unless you're explicitly looking for it, you may not know that there are all these apps being created and perhaps being used in a business critical sense. So firstly, we need a big list. And to do that, quite nicely, Microsoft provides a flow management connector within the Power Platform itself. Flow, which is Power Automate, is able to use the flow management connector and the Power Platform admin connectors to basically scan itself. So the idea is that you build a flow that will use these connectors to look at all the environments in your company and then look at all the flows and Power Apps in every one of these environments. And you run it as an administrator, a Power Platform admin role, or it could be, in the past you need to be tenant admin, now you just need to be Power Platform admin. And such a role grants administrator ability to scan everything. And once you scan and see everything, you just copy them into a big list. You could do that in a SharePoint list. You could do it in CDS, the Common Data Service. Some people do it in SQL Server, but generally SharePoint list or CDS. And then from this list, you can do analytics and dashboards. So that's where we have this monitor and analyze. Analytics generally done, if you want to slice and dice, the easiest way is probably using some sort of Power BI. So create a Power BI dashboard, point it at your data source, and you can get some, you can begin to see, okay, how many are we creating, for example. From the same list also allows us to create alerts. You can look for certain patterns, like a very common one, and we're going to some of